Well, I'd like to welcome everybody here to the Bay Center in Providence, and in particular I'd like to extend a special welcome to Senator Reid, who's going to spend a few minutes talking about the oil spill in the Gulf and the response of our government agencies to this tragedy and Rhode Islanders' response to this tragedy. I know for many of us we've experienced firsthand the terrible devastation that comes with a major oil spill. It wasn't that long ago, 1996, that we had our own troubles here, and so many of us in Rhode Island suffered the consequences of that spill and rallied to address the longer-term issues that grew out of that spill, including how to clean it up and how to prevent future spills. So again, Senator Reid, thank you very much for coming, and my pleasure to have you here.
Well, I want to thank Jonathan for that very gracious introduction, and also thank Jonathan and all Save the Bay for their efforts over many, many years to respond to crises, but also anticipate crises and do the things we have to do to protect the environment of Rhode Island. On April 20th, BP Gulf had a huge spill 40 miles off the coast of Louisiana. The most tragic, obviously, incident was the loss of 11 lives, workers who were doing their best. But since that time, they have leaked about 3.5 million gallons of oil. It continues to leak. It is an environmental and economic disaster on top of the human disaster. We've, as Jonathan alluded to, we've seen this before in Rhode Island, the North Cape oil spill in 1996. Fortunately, we didn't lose anyone. That was a tribute to the courage of Coast Guardsmen who rushed out and took the fishermen and took the pilot and the crew of the tugboat and the barge off the boat. But we saw the economic and environmental damage. And I also saw a huge volunteer effort, and Save the Bay was a large part of it. I can remember going with Kurt Spaulding to the places where they were actually cleaning the birds from the oil, and it was all volunteers, not just Save the Bay, but Rhode Island is coming out to help out. We need that spirit today. In the past, we've heard the slogans of drill, baby, drill, but we've got to make sure that we know what we're doing, we know how to deal with it, and then we know how to respond if there's a problem. We need a comprehensive, forward-looking, long-term energy plan that actually puts more emphasis on renewable energy rather than petroleum products, makes greater investments in net mass transit, does a lot to reduce demand as well as to increase supply. The Obama's administration moratorium on new projects, offshore drilling, I think is sound, given what we're trying to understand from this accident. This week, both the Congress and the Coast Guard and the U.S. Minerals Management Service will begin public inquiries, and those public inquiries will lead to a better understanding and better policy going forward. At this moment, about 210,000 gallons of oil are streaming into the Gulf of Mexico every day. Attempts have been made, but they've been futile to date. One BP executive likened the efforts to, quote, doing open-heart surgery at 5,000 feet in the dark with robot-controlled submarines. Which leads you to the conclusion, if it's that hard to stop it, you should be very careful before you start. And I think that is something we have to understand. BP is a company that had $5.5 billion in profits in the first quarter of 2010. They should be able to absorb this cost, not just the direct cost of stopping the spill, but the indirect cost to the coast and to the environment of the Gulf. They must be held accountable, and I've joined my colleagues in New Jersey to support the Big Oil Bailout Prevention Act, which will raise the economic damages liability cap for offshore spills from $75 million to $10 billion. 75 million might have been a lot in 1989, but it's not sufficient today. Now, one of the good things we've seen is the direct and dramatic and forceful response of the administration. All hands are on deck. The Interior Department, Department of Homeland Security, the Coast Guard, EPA, Minerals Management Service, the Fish and Wildlife Service, NOAA, even NASA have committed significant resources to clean up the Gulf. Over 275 vessels, including Coast Guard cutters assigned to Rhode Island with special skimming systems on board, have been dispatched to the area. 10,000 personnel have been deployed. This is a full-time effort by the first team. Rhode Islanders have also been in the vanguard of helping, just as they were in 1996. We've had several commercial fishermen that immediately stood up and said, how can we help? They know firsthand the damage that a spill can cause, and they wanted to be part of the solution. We've also seen some international participation. The government of Sweden is sending 3 skimming vessels over. So we are all engaged. The Obama administration, individuals here in Rhode Island, nations across the globe. We've got to do everything we can. John, were you going to say something?
You know, I think you covered it well, and I'll respond to questions. And we have some information about specifically what we're doing, what Rhode Islanders are doing.
Well, in that case, John, you get up here and don't respond. You tell them.
Okay. Happy to do it. And thank you, Senator Reid, for doing this. You know, this is already a spill of national significance, and whether we know people or think we're directly affected by the spill in the Gulf, this will affect us all. It's at a scale already that rivals the Exxon Valdez, and is sure to be a major topic of not just environmental but public policy conversation for decades to come. We have been working closely with Senator Reid's office and with our partners in the Coast Guard and in the nonprofit environmental community to help respond to this. In the 96 oil spill, as the Senator mentioned, Save the Bay served as the official volunteer management and coordination agency for the state of Rhode Island. And one of the things that became apparent as soon as this spill happened is, first of all, that there wasn't a really well-organized way to take these volunteer requests and offers to help. We know just from what the Senator mentioned, what we've experienced here at Save the Bay, lots of people have resources to bring. People are ready to go down to the Gulf. Our fishermen are ready to bring their boats and go down and start to transplant shellfish and put down boom. And we need to make sure that we make efficient use of this while providing as much support as we can to our brother and sister organizations who are down there on the front lines. And working with the National Waterkeeper Alliance, I've been part of daily conference calls and briefings on the situation down in the Gulf. And it's an all-hands situation. They need tables and chairs, everything from volunteer support on the ground to satellite images from space that are going to show them where the oil is and how to best respond to this. So we're committed through our efforts here in Rhode Island, through our unfortunate experience and expertise in oil spill management, to support our partner organizations like the Coalition to Restore Coastal Louisiana, the Mobile Baykeeper, and the other folks who are on the ground right now training volunteers and really working to clean up the oil and to protect sensitive environment. We're in this together, and we want to do our best working with the Senator from Rhode Island to put our voice in the national chorus of support and help for all of our countrymen and colleagues down there who need it the most right now. So, and the last thing, just on public policy, I think this incident underscores for us, among other things, how fragile our environment is to energy development. And when we think about where we're going to site large energy development facilities, we need to think about the potential environmental and community impacts. And not to make a blatant reference to the LNG campaign, but certainly it's on our minds when we have events like this that people said never have happened before and can never happen. It takes an incident like this to remind us that things do happen, and we need to be prepared to respond to those and to prevent them wherever possible. So, could you just that?
John, has Save the Bay taken a position on this before when the legislation that would remove the PUC from approving their rates?
Yes, first of all, we strongly support offshore wind, and the development of renewable energy is a priority for Save the Bay. However, for that specific piece of legislation, we did oppose the bill, mostly just because it specifically goes around the Public Utilities Commission, which we think is the appropriately charged agency to make that decision. But in general, we're supportive of offshore wind properly sited and supportive of a process that helps us navigate that and understand how we can do that properly.
Thanks, John. Well done. Thank you, John. And the question, I just would echo one thing John said, is that these catastrophic events never happen until they happen. So we have to be very conscious of even sort of the tail of probability and weight some of our decisions along that way. A much safer approach is energy policy that relies less on policies or programs that might have limited risk, but the risk is very large if it materializes. Any other questions on other subjects? I think.
Yeah.